How are you? I'm Dr. Sarah Hanson. I'm the Associate Dean of Student Affairs. So thank you for coming today. We're going to be talking about our social sciences, social and behavioral sciences department here. Some questions that we have preset. Many thanks to Emily Canto, our Career Services Director, for putting this together. So thank you for coming. Welcome. Do I need the mic? If you can't hear me just yet, I'll try to be loud. So I will start by introducing our panel and putting on my glasses. So on the end, we have Assistant Professor of Accounting and Program Coordinator of Business, Mike Rotundo. We have Dr. Jennifer Hernandez, who is the Professor and Program Coordinator of Human Services. We have Dr. Rebecca Lowe, who is the Professor of Behavioral Sciences and the Program Coordinator of Sociology and Anthropology. Did I get all of those right? Because I had to go to the website to make sure I didn't miss anything. And then in a few minutes, we'll be joined by Professor Rebecca Risbrown, who is the Program Coordinator of Criminal Justice and Criminology Studies. She's teaching, so she'll arrive as soon as she can. So we have some set questions. What I'll do is just start with the first question. All of our panelists have them, so if we can start with Mike on the end, answers the questions, and then pass it down the line as we roll through. All right, so the first question says, briefly discuss your academic background and how you became interested in your field.
So, with the microphone,
Yes, for the recording, Mike.
Yeah, microphone.
Okay. Yeah, so, I think my journey in accounting actually started in high school. I took a accounting course in high school in part of the business studies program. And I found I really liked working with numbers. I kind of liked the logical flow of the numbers. I always said that, if there was an accountant on the enterprise, it would be Mr. Spock, right? Because it's got kind of a logical flow in it. And so I think that kind of really got me interested in pursuing it as a career. So I got my bachelor's degree in accounting, and I did work in banking and insurance for many years. And while I was working at the bank, I got my master's in business administration. And I found that working in the bank was very interesting, dealing with a lot of different types of problems, like budgets, trust administration, investment accounting, all kinds of different areas that you can apply in accounting. After I worked there for a while, I had an opportunity to become an adjunct here, which I did. And I adjuncted here teaching financial and managerial accounting for many years, and then became the program coordinator for business last August. So that's kind of a brief summary.
I think what we can do is we can read off all the questions. If you want to just read question number 2,
okay.
Go through the whole list and then pass it down the way that way.
Okay, so the second question was, what majors should a student decide to transfer you think are most related to your program of study? So certainly accounting, as I talked about, our associate degree in accounting certainly will, transfer. Most of the courses I think would transfer to Central or somewhere else. I don't want to say 100% sure, because it's always up to the receiving institution what courses are transferred. But I know with the consolidation, they're working on making sure that our courses go to the various state universities. We also have our business administration degree and our business studies degree, which is designed to transfer to CCSE. So any of those should transfer, into a bachelor's program if that's what you're interested in. If we have, things like career options, that is the next question. What career options do you think students may pursue with a degree in your academic area, with an associate's or with a bachelor's? With an associate's in accounting, you can become what's called an accounting assistant. It's a relatively new phenomenon. Kind of started in the 90s and really took off in the early 2000s. in 2002, there was a new law passed called the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, and it was in response to the Enron scandal. I don't know if any of you know about this, but there was a company in Texas called Enron that cooked the books essentially, and what happened was that the government got involved, and this new law was passed, and it created all kinds of new requirements for accountants. So kind of this middle ground between accountants and bookkeepers kind of sprung up, and it's called the accounting assistant. And so the accounting assistant will do a lot of the reports, the journal entries, input, other kinds of things to free the accountant up for regulatory compliance. So you can certainly do that. There's a lot of career opportunities with a background in accounting because it exposes you to financial statements, which are used for decision making. You can work at a bank like I did. You can work in insurance companies where everybody needs accountants, right? Now, if you decide to go on for your bachelor's in accounting and become a full accountant, you could work in a company. You could become a CPA, a certified public accountant, which almost everybody's heard of. Okay? Or you can do taxes or consulting. You could also do auditing, things like that. As far as our business degrees, the business studies degree is designed to transfer to something. So with a bachelor's in business, you can focus on management or in marketing. If you're focused in marketing, you become like a marketing manager or advertising manager. With an associate, you could be like a product specialist or, something like that. And you could even, with an associate in marketing, you could even work your way up to those higher positions, but a lot of them require a bachelor's degree. So we also have the digital marketing certificate and we have the entrepreneurship certificate. So if you're interested in starting your own business, one of the issues a lot of small business people have is, they have a great idea and, they're excellent at, being a plumber, for example, but they don't necessarily know the business end. So, the entrepreneurship certificate will help you. Okay? So if you wanted to start your own business, it's good to have some of that business background. So you understand how to market a product, you understand the financial statements, you understand, some of the stuff you have to discuss with them, what regulatory requirements you have to follow. So depending on the type of business you're in, okay? So that kind of covers the career path as well. As far as what recommendations do you have for a student considering earning a degree in your area? I would say having an idea of the goal is good. If you're not sure at this point, that's fine. But if you have an idea of what you want to be, what the goal is, that can kind of help you design a path. And to be passionate about it. There's, I don't know if you ever heard of Mike Rowe. He does a lot of videos on, about work. And he said, don't be passionate about your work, because work is work and, home is home. But I think if you really love what you do, you're never going to work a day in your life, right? If you love what you do and, there's a demand for what you do, and there certainly is for business. Even in nonprofits and government institutions, they need people with a business background. Like the FBI, for example, is always looking for people that can, look for fraud in financial statements. Okay, and there's always these government agencies looking for people that have business background. So, and that can go to a business, look at the financial statements, look at the operations of the business. Operations management is another great area where you have, supply chain. So if you had an associate's degree in management from here, and then you went somewhere to study operations management, that's a big field, right? You could go in and you could look at their workflows, their supply chain, all those kinds of things. So there's a ton of opportunity with business. So I hope that kind of answers the questions.
Yeah, no, and fashion. came from the retail world,
Oh,
I was a
yes,
business
thank-
major.
Yes.
There's a lot you could do with that there too. And then
Yes.
you get to higher ed, you never know where you're gonna go.
Right, exactly. Yeah, look at me. I mean, higher ed's a second career for me too. So, when you have education gives you choices, right? Where, I remember when I got laid off in the bank, and I went to, this was years ago, I went to a meeting at the unemployment office. It was all bank employees looking to work at a bank. The banks weren't hiring anybody. So by having education, it gives you choices, it gives you other opportunities that you might not have otherwise. So, whatever you decide to do, it's really important that you have that education behind you. It's like Sarah said, and what others will say is that you don't have to stay, with your first job all the time. My first job was at the bank crunching numbers, but I only did that for a couple of years, and then I moved up to something else. So, there's lots of opportunities, when you have the education behind you. And as you gain experience, you have more. Thank you.
Well, you just left me with so many smiles as you were talking. And we have notes here to sort out what we're going to say
Yeah,
to our
right.
questions. And you just left me with so much more to interject in terms of your enthusiasm. I love that. So, again, I'm Dr. Jennifer Hernandez, and I oversee Human Services, Social Work Studies, and Therapeutic Rec program. For the purpose of today's discussion, I'm really going to focus on the Human Services and the Social Work Studies. To briefly describe a little bit of my academic background, I actually am a graduate from Middlesex here too, and so like many of the students here have a courageous story of resiliency in terms of my academic trajectory. I was not a traditional student in terms of my high school experience, and I chose to parent at a really young age, and so that kind of changed some of my options for me in terms of what I was going to do. I was kind of lost, really. And so Middletown Adult Ed so wonderfully connected me to Middlesex Community College, and I started my career here in the early 90s. So that's not that long ago, right? And what's interesting about what you were sharing too is that when I was here, I had already started working a little bit in the human services field, running groups, volunteering, and things for the Young Parents Program. And so I had started to do some work. And when I came here, we had a human services program, but instinctively I recognized in myself that there was something about the field that I loved in terms of the creativity that it allowed me. And so I knew that actually that there was something about building programs that I wanted to learn a little bit more about. And so I took classes in business. I took a few classes in business. Like I remember taking retailing, and I took marketing and international business and things like that. And then I took a couple of human services courses in my general credits as well. And I did that because, like I said, I started to kind of feel like, okay, I love human services, but I also really think I have a niche. And so completed my degree here, not as a great student. I was not a fantastic student, to be honest with you. I was having a hard time utilizing the resources that I so very much talk about today that are here. I really encourage the wraparound of the supports. But I was in survival mode. And so I got through, though, and I got the associate's degree while I was starting to find my career. And actually, I had all kinds of jobs. When you're talking about the jobs, well, my jobs range from being barbershop, which I had no business being in, to McDonald's, to opening donut stores, to being a CNA, to all kinds of stuff that I did to be able to survive and to provide right for my growing family. When I finished Middlesex, I was fortunate enough to be able to attend Lesley University, which is Lesley College, which is now Lesley University. And they had a really unique program where I could go away on the weekend a couple of times a month and go and find and have some kind of college experience a little bit while I was raising the kids. And I ended up getting a degree in human services and counseling psychology. It was a very rigorous program where I spent a lot of time doing counseling courses and really trying to, manage that skill of becoming a practitioner. And it was during that time that I recognized that I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do counseling. I recognized that there really was something about that capability of building a program and designing services that could support people like me, right? And so I got a job at that time. I was working at Middlesex Hospital through the family, which is now, I can proudly say, the Family Advocacy Program. And I started to develop it with a colleague of mine who was my boss, who's a colleague today. And we developed the Family Advocacy Program to serve young parents in in-home parent education. And so that was the start of my career while I was going to school here. And as I went to Leslie, and then I came back to Middlesex to run groups here for young mothers. And so for mothers that were attending school here, I would run groups on campus. So my heart just kept growing in terms of the work that I was doing. And in fact, I knew that academics was important to me. And I knew that that bridge to bringing moms to college was going to be important to their future as well. And in fact, I brought 45 women to college during that time to enroll at Middlesex. And I wish I knew what research was then so that we could have tracked their outcomes, but I didn't at that time still. After I went to Leslie, I went off. I finished my work at Middlesex Hospital, and I was offered a position in New Britain for a program called Mothers Offering Mothers Support. And it was a small program. I was given this opportunity to continue running a volunteer support program for young mothers. And then I decided to go off to my master's. And at this point, I knew that I certainly wasn't going to do direct care. I was going to build programs. And so I went off to Springfield College and I got a master's degree in human services with a focus on organizational leadership. And during that time, I started to build programs and write grants. And in fact, I love to add to the story that when I learn, people say to me, because I've written a lot of grants, and when people say to me, where did you learn? I actually learned here at Middlesex, because when I took one of my business courses, they asked us to write a business plan. And I quickly was able to translate that into, a business plan, a grant plan. And so took that on and began to develop what is now known as the Family Enrichment Center at the Hospital of Central Connecticut. And so not only am I here as a faculty member and coordinator, but I still run an agency with, now I'm proud to say, 20 employees, which is quite impressive for that. But as that program was growing, I also recognized the need to find my voice in a different way. And so everybody kept asking me as a young mom, like, how did I do it too, right? So they say, like, how did you do it? And I said, I don't really know. I just have resiliency. I don't know how I did it. So I decided to go back to school, and I went to University of Hartford, and I obtained a doctorate in education and leadership. And that trajectory was just an amazing opportunity for my personal and professional growth. And it really did help me find my voice a little bit more, in that my doctoral research included looking at young mothers who were under 16 when they chose to parent, who themselves, like myself, achieved academic success. And I asked them about their stories, and I asked them about their birthing plan and about their birth experience in early childhood. And so that brought me to the development of further programming and publications as well. So there's a lot there, as you can see, in terms of that first question. So I'll move on from there, but I'm always available for further conversation points on that. But the main insert of that is that you can hear that there's another eclectic background in academic preparation. So when you look at the question of what majors that are related most likely to this field, it is psychology. I really love it when human services students or social work studies students come to me and they tell me that they're engaged in their psychology class. And I often in my classes tell students to pay attention to their psychology and sociology classes because there's a real connection. And sometimes people get into this field thinking, I'm going to be, I want to be a social worker, I want to be this, but they don't pay enough attention to the human mind and the world around them. And that's going to make you a better provider. I also put down here a business, as you heard, the business classes. If you have some interest and you're thinking, maybe I would explore it. It was some of the best things that I did here, because as you were talking about in my management of the programs that I run in the hospital, I have to do things, not so much anymore, but in growing up in it, I have to manage budgets and I have to look at, statistics, all those things that we say, like, why do we have to take statistics? Well, there you go. This is why I need to know the percentage of people that are the outcomes and things. So I would say social work, sociology, psychology, human services, and business. And so what career options can somebody with an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree have in this? The opportunities are truly endless because human services programs are everywhere, and the increase, and that's kind of answering the following question in terms of the trajectory of the career, is that there's like a 21% increase of needs for human services providers in the industry. So that's between services such as working in a group home, the in-home. What we do at my agency is that we run in-home parent education. It's a program that's replicated all over the state of Connecticut. There's $30 million in in-home parent education in the state. So that for an associate's level is an absolutely beautiful trajectory if you love early childhood too. And you're thinking, geez, wait a minute, I can blend both degrees like I was suggesting. Also, there's work in shelters, also in domestic violence organizations as well, case management, opportunities in the school districts. If you have a degree in human services, you absolutely could be a paraprofessional in a school district too. You can run groups. There's all kinds of things that are available to you, including work with Department of Children and Families, Department of Social Services, Department of Public Health, right? So for example, outreach workers are very well known in terms of associate's level. DCF has transport aides. We've had several students of ours that have been offered positions at DCF to be transport aides or to monitor supervised visitation, and their pay starts, like it's pretty good. It starts at like $48,000, right? So an associate's with 40, that's a pretty good deal. Hard work, but capable of your attention. So as I started to say, there's a 21% increase in need between social services and human services. And mostly due to the COVID pandemic too. We really recognize the need for support in terms of our holistic health. And so we've definitely seen an increase. That's in state, federal, and local funding as well. So through grants as well as contracts with state and federal government. What would I have in terms of recommending to a student who considering earning this degree? I really hear, and I mean this, is that get ready to do some work yourself. Okay. Where most of us are wounded healers or connected to a wounded healer. And so what do I mean by that? We most have stories, right? We come to this work because we have stories, and we can look at each other and know that even just by looking at each other that we have some empathy and understanding that there's a story there, right? And so that's why we come into the field. And so I say to the students that I get privileged to have time with in their story to make sure that you take care of yourself and make sure that you look at opportunities to heal so that you can be a better practitioner, because there are a lot of bad providers in the field too, and most of the time it's because they didn't do the self-work. And because it will overflow. And so when I was a student here, and many people have heard me tell this story, that when I was a student here, we were really pushed to, the busier you were, because it was that time of our life. It was the 90s. This is what we did, right? The more busy you were, the more important you were, right? The more valuable you were to society. And what I had to learn in a very hard way, was that that was not the philosophy that I would live by, nor would it be the one that I would encourage students that I had the privilege to share their journey with, or others, my staff, or clients that I've been blessed to share their stories with. I share that the self-care is the most priority in terms of preparing for this life, because you are constantly in front of your own story, other people's stories, and you can carry that with you in a way that could really hurt you or can encourage you and influence you to continue in the work that you do. So that would probably be my gift in terms of what I would say to you, is to take with you, if you were to decide this, is be ready to do the work. It doesn't mean you have to do the work and finish it all up in a bow before you get into the degree, because that's just silly. You got to get into the degree, and we got to work together to get you there, right? And then together, we can certainly support you in that, and a variety of resources and discussion points. So I think that's what I have to say.
That's a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Again, my name is Dr. Rebecca Lowe, and I am the coordinator for sociology and anthropology. And I will start out, I'm very organized, and I'm going to try to keep to my time frame because we have one more person and we want time for questions.
Maybe you should take an accounting course.
Yeah.
Well, actually my first paid job was doing accounting. I did the books for my father's company
Oh, no
before
kidding.
before there was software to do it, and I know the thrill of getting your books to balance. It's really, so I'd just like to say a little bit about myself with respect to my academic background. I grew up, I'm born in New York City, and when I was young, my family moved to Florida, where I finished high school, and I wanted to go to college away from home. So I went to a liberal arts college in Poughkeepsie, New York, and that was a huge adjustment, moving that far away from home. And I arrived on campus all set to become a pre-med major. And within a semester or so, I realized that my commitment to that course of study was wavering, and I wasn't quite sure where I would land. So I continued to take a variety of courses, and I took a sociology course, and I couldn't stand the professor, but I thought it was kind of interesting. So I signed up to take a sociology of the family course the beginning of my sophomore year. And I walked in, and they had changed instructors, and it was the same one I had who I couldn't stand before. And I thought, oh, well, it's too embarrassing to walk out right now, but let me, change, because I'm not going to endure her again. And I was mesmerized, and I didn't leave the course. I didn't leave the instructor or the course. I stuck with both, and that was an incredibly important thing to do. First of all, I learned, which is important for us at this stage, that sometimes, students can experience an instructor one way and have a different experience given the dynamic of other people in the class. This was an 8 o'clock in the morning class my first time. People were grumpy, etc. We had a better chemistry the second time around. And this faculty member went on to become my advisor and a lifelong friend. She came to my wedding. I'm still in touch with her. I learned from her still at my age. So there was that piece of it, and also the content of the course really stuck with me. So I was very interested, and then I took another course, and I said, that's it. I'm going to major in sociology. And my focus mainly was in social theory, which is kind of akin to some philosophy, and the building block of our discipline, which is social theory. Anyone in here already taken a sociology course? Okay, so you will study social theory, and it's fabulous. One of the key areas within theory that I studied that really stuck with me was this whole idea of how to look at society as it is and how to imagine it as it should be. So, what we have and what we aspire to have in terms of our experience of one another and our experience of our social world. And if the two are pretty close, like how we aspire to live our lives and how we are actually living our lives, we say, all is good. This is really wonderful. Let's go on with things. But if we sort of do that analysis as we are likely to do when we're younger with some idealism, we likely find, as I did, that there were some shortcomings, right? That what we could be and how society ought to be was different, at least for a lot of people, from what it actually was. And so this idea of being able to understand some of the dynamics behind those different kinds of experiences, and also with that, for me, a sense of I want to be part of the work to get us closer to where we could be as a society and as a world. So how do you do that? I wasn't quite sure, actually, even though I got my 4-year degree. I wasn't quite sure, my next step, but I, spoke with my advisors, I spoke with alumni, I did some research, and I decided that for me, I worked a year, and then I was going to go to graduate school, which I did. I got my master's in public policy. So for my understanding at that point, and I think it was good counsel that I received, it wasn't enough to have these wonderful ideas and ability to analyze and, cite de Tocqueville and, Durkheim and Weber, et cetera. We needed some actual skills to bring about social change, and that meant studying also, in addition to sociology, economics and political science. So my academic path took me into this multidisciplinary path of study for my master's and eventually for my PhD, which involves the integration of three fields within the social sciences: political science, economics, and sociology. So you have tools to figure out how to take your ideas and do it in an economical, really feasible way in a political environment. So within that area, my particular interest was in health policy. So I finished my master's and went to work in a couple different settings. One was with a very large insurance company. I worked in their health insurance area, doing a lot of data analysis and report writing and trying to understand people's experience of health and healthcare. And then I went to work for a nonprofit, and I was an editor of two books and got involved in research. So had a couple of 2-3 articles published in those books looking at the health and healthcare of groups at risk. This was in the Boston area in Massachusetts. And for me, I loved that work. I loved being able to do research, to uncover and provide insight into vulnerable groups whose needs were not being met, and to provide and identify some solutions or alternatives of how we can, take care of people better. That job, or looking for that second job, involved, a comprehensive job search. And when I was doing that job search, I would ask people at the end of my interview, so tell me about the work that you do, right? And these were usually people who were heads of the research and program evaluation area within their organization. And I thought, I would like to do that work someday. That sounds really like I could just, finish my career doing that kind of work, where you're taking an idea, you're implementing a solution, you're trying to see, did this make a positive difference in people's lives? If not, let's do something else. If it did, let's do what we can to make sure it keeps going. And if we need to make it better, let's figure that out as well. That seemed to check all the boxes for me. So what that meant was, okay, I'll be quick, because this is all a preamble for where I'm going. That meant that I needed to get a PhD, which I did and enjoyed very much. All right, so I thought I was being concise, but apparently not. So that's my background, and it very much influences and is tied into the other comments that I'm going to make to you. What majors should a student decide to transfer, do you think, most related to our program of study? I don't have a program per se, where I'm a discipline coordinator. So I think, for the 2-year degree, it's 2 to 4 courses in sociology or anthropology. You'll need to take principles of sociology, I would highly recommend. And then we have 200 level courses, including public health, which has been very popular since the COVID pandemic. So career options, if you have an associate's degree in my area, in sociology, would include work in the social services, substance abuse, juvenile justice, human resources. And actually, and I did the research on this, one of the most common jobs for folks with associates in sociology is to go into sales and marketing. Yeah. And I think some of that is because when you study sociology, you're studying human behavior, social interaction, the structures that make up society. And in the process, you're really learning those soft skills that are so important. Rather than specific technical knowledge, you're learning how to think and how to learn. You're learning how to synthesize information, how to solve problems, how to work together with other people, how to see the bigger picture in the world. And that is really important. In our sociology courses here at Middlesex, you will study social change. And one thing you will find in that study is that all of you undergraduates in here are going to be doing work. The chances are significant that you will be doing jobs that don't even exist right now, right? So how do you prepare for that kind of work? You prepare by having ability to think well, to communicate well, to work with others, to see the big picture, to identify what you know, what you don't know, how to find out what you need to know. All of these important skills serve you across the board. So I would say that sociology is a very flexible pursuit of study. It situates you very well to do a number of important things. And that includes, with a bachelor's degree, working in areas such as social work, human resources, paralegal, urban planner, community health worker, market research analyst, public relations, diversity manager, school counselor, and learning and development specialist. My final piece of advice or recommendations, if you're considering a degree in sociology, is to get field work experience, get an internship, have some field work, get out there and connect the real world with the discipline. It'll help you figure out how good a fit it is for you and where your passion is within the diverse work that we do. So.
Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Rebecca Risbrown, Criminal Justice. So I'm actually going to start with question 5 first. What recommendation do you have for students considering earning a degree in your field? Well, I'm in criminal justice. I would say always have a plan B, because you never know what's going to happen. And that kind of leads me into question 1, my academic background. I actually started off in high school, and I actually wanted to be a Marine. I wanted to go in the military. I wanted to go to West Point. Unfortunately, I got a very bad soccer injury, and I actually had pins in my leg. And I came to find out from the recruiter my senior year that I can't be in the military if I have pins. They told me take them out. And I said, no, then my ankle will fall apart. So that's not going to happen. That's the time that Henry Lee started becoming really popular. And I found out about this thing called CSI. And this is before the show. There was no show on NBC. But I found out about crime scene investigators. And it was my high school chemistry teacher that handed me my first Henry Lee book and said, you need to look at this new field of forensic science. And I said, this is right up my alley. So I went to Hand High School. Nobody ever told me about Middlesex Community College. They only told me about UConn, no offense. And I ended up learning about this school called UNH, University of New Haven, who was just developing this huge criminal justice and forensic science program. So I started at UNH, and again, plan B, I actually had a full scholarship to go there for academics and soccer. But unfortunately, I can't play soccer ever again, but I still had my academic scholarship. So I encourage all of you, 3.5 or higher, you get the presidential academic scholarship there. I started in criminal justice there with a concentration in investigative services, and I told them all, I want to be a crime scene investigator, I want to be a crime scene investigator. I got to my junior year of college and they said, well, you can't do that in Connecticut without being a police officer. I went, oh, well, that's interesting. I guess I'm going to be a cop. Who knew? So I ended up actually, senior year, at the same time, I got hired by the Federal Police Corps, and I went to Salt Lake City, Utah for 6 months. I got federal training. I was out there. We did 2,800 hours of training in 6 months. I lived in Salt Lake City, Utah. Got trained, came back to Connecticut, and spent the next 6 years being a police officer. I earned my bachelor's in investigative services, and while I worked midnights as a police officer, I actually also got my master's in forensic science. Funny story. When my advisor at UNH for my master's said, well, you need more experience in crime scene. I'm like, wait, but I'm a cop. No, our program requires you do an internship. Okay. So I paid $6,000 to take an internship class at University of New Haven and went and worked for Hartford Police Department for free for 9 months. I actually paid to work for Hartford Police Department. So I worked with their crime scene unit for 9 months, going to crazy crime scenes in Hartford, and Hartford's the best. Definitely like not anything you see on CSI. There's no Hummers. There's no nicely drive. We drove this Ford Taurus that the floor pans were rotting out. We were lucky if it got us to the crime scenes. And being able to work midnights, I got my master's in forensic science. I ended up becoming a post-certified instructor, post meaning Police Officer Standard and Training Council. I'm a certified instructor in criminalistics and crime scenes, so anything blood, guts, and gory, that's right up my alley. I transitioned out of law enforcement because I wanted to have a family, and I decided to pursue a high school biology teacher. I thought that would be a great path. Again, let's have plan B. I ended up going back to University of New Haven for the 3rd time, earning my master's in education, And this again is going to go with number 5. You never know what opportunities are going to come your way. I attended Middlesex as a student taking biology courses to get my state certification and happened to be taking the microbiology course here on campus. And the professor at the time talked to me about my background and says, wait a minute, you have a master's? She hired me the next semester to start teaching here. So can you get hired right out of class? Absolutely. I did. And that started my love for college level education. By the way, I went on to do internships of high school biology teacher and realized I hated it. So I just spent a long time earning a degree, but I use it here at the college level. I did go on to try and do some PhD courses, but unfortunately having a 5-year-old and trying to do a PhD program and run a criminal justice program just didn't work for me. Oh, and I'm a wife too, and I run a farm. So yeah, didn't work out. So that's kind of how my career evolved, but anything bloody, gutty, and gory is all right up my alley. I love it. I love having fun with my students in forensic science. So what major should you decide if you transfer? Any criminal justice related field, you can combine degrees. So for example, if you're good with numbers, which most criminal justice students aren't, you could be a forensic accountist. Forensic accounting, huge area of need. You love photography, you can do forensic photography. If you love science, you could do forensic science. So anything you can think, we can combine those degrees. There's actually, I learned last year, a career called a forensic musologist, musical, something like that, where they look at songs and everything and analyze if they're actually plagiarized. What career options do you think you could pursue? Anything. Anything. Go to crimesceneinvestigator.net. You will see all these different criminal justice careers that you can do with just a high school diploma, okay? Or even a master's. Some of them require an associate's. What are career paths? Well, I have a couple documents here. 20 jobs you can get with a criminal justice degree. But what if you're freaked out by firearms? You don't want to have a gun. That's okay, because I have 7 jobs in case you're freaked out by firearms. I like the alliteration. All right? And last but not least, I don't like that one, English professor. And then I kind of have a little blurb here about what are some things that maybe a criminal justice degree is not right for you, okay? If you have a history of, what's it called, of like a criminal history, a criminal record, it may not be the right degree for you for certain jobs. However, we're always looking for victims advocates. We're looking for counselors. We're looking for people to support people in reform programs. So that's another great option for you. So I have those if anybody wants them. But again, what recommendations do I have? Keep your mind open. You never know where that job's going to come from. Maybe it's from sitting in Mrs. Brown's forensic science class or a microbiology class. And network, network, network. Talk to your professors. They're going to tell you what jobs are the best. And have fun. Enjoy what you do. Love it. I do, even though it's blood, gutsy, and gory.
If I could just add to that very quickly, you mentioned forensic accounting. You can also be a certified fraud examiner, which kind of combines, accounting and business skills with criminal justice. Just thought I would mention that.
Right, and victims
Yeah.
advocacy, human
Right.
services, social
Right.
work.
Right.
Let's hear it for our panelists. What questions does anybody have? Yes.
I always have a
Mrs.
question.
Cantor.
How do you recommend that students go about creating internships, co-ops, fields work? Because I really think that helps folks rule in and rule out. And how many would you recommend students try to get? Whoever.
Well, I'm fairly new at it, but we do encourage students to do internships, and what we do, we try to connect them with people we know in the field. Because we want them to have the experience that relates as closely as possible, to their field of study. Now, business, there's lots of different options. Again, like I said, I'm fairly new at it, but I am trying to, those students that are interested to, look at all the opportunities and connect them, get the job description, and kind of talk to the student about the kind of things that they would learn at that internship, if that's helpful.
You can look on, there are a number of ways to go about it. One, you can look on Glassdoor or other websites that internships will be listed on there. we don't have in sociology per se formal internship programs aligned, but if you were interested, come talk to me, come talk to other faculty who are teaching, we'd be happy to work with you. And then I think in any discipline, go ask for an informational interview with somebody that's working in an organization that you're curious about, and you might imagine you're interested in, because I think it's really, I think most people, really want to help, someone who's young in their career, who's interested, who takes the initiative to reach out. Certainly at a minimum to have a conversation if they don't have anything to offer to help you network, and that's great skills for looking for a job for the rest, throughout the rest of your life.
Yeah, I want to add to that too, is that we do in the human services and social work studies, we do offer field placement opportunities that are formalized. However, what I will say is that volunteering is critical to your professional trajectory. I can't, every single job that has become a career, including teaching, I volunteered to do. I volunteered at Tungstis for a full year teaching before I got hired there as a part-timer too, which I didn't include in the story. But volunteering, as Dr. Lowe said as well, is interviewing people. We do it as an assignment, but don't just take it as an assignment. Go and find somebody that does a job you think you like or that you think you want to do, and go talk to them about it. It's an absolutely wonderful opportunity to hear all of the things around that the career development that happens in that. So.
And people love to talk about their jobs.
Yes, we do, because we love what we
Yeah,
do.
we
We love what we
exactly.
do.
So,
Yeah.
and there are certain fields like insurance. I don't mean corporate insurance, but like insurance agencies. They are always looking for young people to come in and try to, learn the business, do internships, things like that. So, there are certain areas that that really are looking to grow people from within, so.
And ask
The
your professor.
legislative internship program is
Right, that's a good
and
one,
that,
too.
That touches upon all
Right.
of our disciplines and has opportunities. It's fabulous.
So the other aspect too with an internship is it can not only help you solidify what you want to do, but it also can help you figure out maybe this
What
is
you
not
don't
what I
want
want
to
to
do.
do.
Very
I
good
had
point.
somebody,
Very good
a
point.
student go into
Yeah.
juvenile probation and
Yeah.
she thought that was the absolute job she
Yep.
wanted to do.
Yep.
She interned for 6 months and said, no way.
Yep.
No way. And that was a
Interesting.
great thing
Yeah.
too, to readjust her degree, her track,
Right.
and
Yeah.
everything else.
Right.
Just like
Very
I didn't
good
like
point.
high school teaching.
Yeah.
I learned to love college. So look at it as a positive no matter
Mm-hmm.
what happens.
I will say too, as a undergrad at WestCon, I completely harassed the career services advisor because I was a history major and they didn't do internships for history, and I said, I want to do an internship. So I was a legislative intern, set up minority leader at the time, and I changed my life. I spent days giving, I can tell you anything you want to know about the Connecticut State Capitol, because I was the person that signed all the letters that you got from your legislator that said, congratulations on making the honor roll. I learned how to imitate my legislative signature. And then I realized politics was not the career that I wanted to get into, but I did register dogs for an entire semester. I was worked at the town clerk's office in New Milford. I did a bunch of really random stuff, so big advocate. Other questions from you guys before we wrap things up? All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming.